Gate 57, it's the third line. It's called Acuteness. This is one of those lines that is very special because there is no detriment, only an exaltation. There are only 9 hexagrams in which there is a singularity instead of a polarity. So there is a special significance here. The exaltation reads the perfected intelligence, where clarity eliminates doubt and ensures manifestation, the possibility of perfected intuition. This is a third line. We know that these people bang into others, and they're mutative bangers, if you'll pardon the expression. And part of the mutation is getting banged. They bang into you with their knowing, and they're adaptive. All third lines are adaptive. This 57.3 in the splenic center is the capacity to adapt to life, because the splenic center is all about the survival of the species. You know, this perfected intelligence, it carries the acuteness to adapt in the now to any threats to life, to the potential of being alive in a perfected form with penetrating awareness. All of that is rooted in the third line as a capacity. The 57.3 is ready for manifestation, even though they don't know how it's going to come out in the now. And the now is just dying to know what's going on in the now, because it's so busy being busy, or it's busy with itself, that it's just a relief to know. And without the knowing, there's no survival, and there's no archetype. No. Trial and error is about how that's going to come out in the now. It's not about the acuteness itself. There's no trial and error about the acuteness. This is still a third line, of course, which means it can be very irresponsible. It can adapt for itself, for its own survival, while leaving others behind, while not caring for others, while not adapting to be able to look after them as well. You know, the third line is the first attempt, if you like, of going to the other side, because it's the transition line, or it's the top of the trigram as it moves up into that fourth line, which is much more sociable. And in doing so, it gets the glory of the 57, the glory the 57 is looking for. You know, it's saying, I was afraid tomorrow, and now I am in the now. And in the now, there is no tomorrow. In no tomorrow, I'm alive. And everything about my consciousness is saying, this is correct. I am alive now. We've discovered already that the 57 is a complex gate. And to add one more layer to that, the 57th gate operates differently in the design, depending on whether there is a 28 or a 38 present or not. And it could be one of the gates, it doesn't have to be the whole channel. But if there is no 28 and or 38 in the design, or even in the aura of people around this person with the 57, then they are totally self-absorbed with their self-caring, and they're not interested in the other than through circumstances of accident or emergency or whatever. But the moment that a 28 and or 38 comes into their life, into their knowing, or if they have it themselves, or if it comes through as a transit, then their intuition is always open to the consideration of the other. And this changes integration into something that is much more humanistic, much more integrative. It actually turns the self-empowerment that is the keynote for integration into empowerment, which is the keynote for individuality. So it opens it up. I know somebody who's got all of integration and not the 28-38, that channel, and left to their own devices, you know, on their own, or with people who don't bring that to them, then they really just get on and do their own thing. They're not especially interested in empowering anybody else. But as soon as that 28 or that 38 comes in, they're so different. It's amazing to watch the mechanic and the way it plays out, and knowing that it is the mechanic, that this isn't them behaving selfishly and being, bad people or any of that crap. It's just the mechanic. There is a very definite desire in integration to just be healthy for themselves. Their own survival is the most important thing. The 57 wants the body to survive. It's really incredible to look at the way it plays out. It never ceases to amaze me when you see it in action. I've got all the learning, I haven't got all of it, my God. I've got some of the learning. I have an intellectual understanding of so many of these gates and the channels, but I can only really experience what I've got. So the rest of it is through witnessing, through your anecdotes that you share with me, which I'm always hugely grateful for. And so then when I see it in action, it's like, oh, it's so exciting. Acuteness, this third line, is a very beautiful line, but it's for the individual alone. The moment that this has got anything to do with anybody else, it's not always playing so nicely. There's 57.3. It's an individual adaptation. It's an individual theme. And it can be cruel in its coldness, in its sort of the withdrawal that it feels. It's not connected to others. It can ignore the needs of others. If things get dangerous, the 57.3 can disappear. And this is actually something worth paying attention to, because if they disappear, try and follow them because they know how to survive. They know how to look after themselves. They may not help you, but you can still follow them. It's pretty perfect that the grounding today is coming through the 51, line 3, which is called adaptation. This is a major keynote for all third lines. And we're still part of individuality in the 51, of course, through the centering circuit. So this is an individual adaptation, with the great power of that for the self. The moon is still in gate 10, so we still have the channel of perfected form for a little while. It's with us for most of the day, actually. And at 17:55, the moon moves into gate 58, bringing us another channel, the channel of judgment, where correcting things can be our joy. As long as we're aware of focusing on the pattern and not making it personal, because that usually doesn't end well. And it's in the channel with the south node, which is in gate 18. It is a south node, isn't it? Yeah, it is. Checking my little diagram that I've got stuck to my computer. Yeah, so that's a big thing with all of these, especially with the gate of correction. And individuality on this cold logic side is not personal. And so, yes, good thing to remember when we are correcting anything. And finally, the moon moves into gate 38. So this is going to have an impact on our 57. This is where it turns the 57 from being self-absorbed and selfish and all about survival for the self, and it opens up into empowering other people to survive instead of like whatever. It's like, yeah, we can be more in this together. So this is the moon here at 4:23 tomorrow morning. This is the gate of the fighter, the gate of opposition, sitting in the root center with the pressure to find something to struggle for, which it would be in the channel. It's the channel of struggle. And the moon is bringing us here, of course, back to individuality. And we can have a knowing that the struggle is a personal business. We don't necessarily want to fight for what other people are steering us towards. We've got that deafness, remember, in individuality. We don't really care what the mainstream is fighting for. It's about finding our own way. This is what individuality is all about, after all. So that's our line 3. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you again for the 4th line tomorrow. Go gently. Bye-bye.